National Coaching Federation has evolved to become the hub for all things coaching. ICF membership has grown to almost 50,000 members in over 152 countries and territories. We have over 40,000 credentialed coaches around the world. So welcome everyone. It's great to have you all here with us today. Whether you're joining us from across the world or just down the street, we appreciate your time and interest in this topic. Over the next hour, we will be exploring how to master the art of difficult conversations, empowering your clients to navigate tricky interactions with confidence. In this webinar, we will discover proven techniques and strategies to help your clients approach tough conversations with clarity, empathy, and resilience. We will explore effective communication skills, mindset shifts, and practical tools for transforming conflicts into constructive dialogue. So join us and take your practice to the next level. We have a fantastic coach who's joining us from ICF Prayer Chapter, Brian Mitchell Walker. Woo! I know everybody's muted, but I'm sure they want to do the same. So show us some, excitement in the comments. Brian is a professional certified coach, an accredited professional with the International Enneagram Association, as well as a Brene Brown Dare to Lead trained and co-facilitator for Dare to Lead programs. Brian helps individuals explore the motivations behind patterns of behavior they would like to change. He works with clients to trust the intelligence of their body, heart, and mind, and to build their capacity to stay in the present moment. And with this, he accesses their inner wisdom. He will be sharing with us his expertise, and we encourage you to actively participate by asking questions and sharing your thoughts throughout the session. Just a note before we start, Brian, for coaches during the session, we will be sharing a form. Please make sure to fill it out if you would like to receive a resource development certificate. And now let's get started. Once again, thank you for joining us, and we hope you find this webinar to be informative and engaging. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you, Carmen. And I must say, as a Canadian, we tend not to talk about ourselves a lot. So
I did it for you. I knew you would say that.
And as you put the promotion together, I just want to hold that what we're talking about is something that is a lifetime journey of kind of figuring out how to best support people in conversations that are hard to make. And I would also like to add, it's only an hour, and the Dare to Lead program is 24 hours over 8 weeks. And so I will just be introducing a couple things from each of these. So if you lower your expectations, we'll have lots of fun. So actually, I want to start off with the question, what do you think of when you hear the word conflict? And if you could just write your responses in the chat. And don't forget to press send after you type. Press enter. Disconnect.
They're thinking, Brian. It's like, yeah.
Different personalities, and that's very true. Differences in thinking, negativity. Different ways of seeing things, duality. Oh, you're a pretty good group, because so many people will come like afraid. They will come with words like yelling, screaming, throwing things. And one of the things I would say is when we think of those negative things, that's often the very thing that stops us from having the hard conversations. So I really appreciate all the comments that were around different perceptions, different ways of seeing things, and different differences in thinking, differences in personalities, how we approach a problem. And one of the things that I like to use, and I'm just going to share my screen, is a simple definition of conflict is having more than one idea in the room at the same time. And one thing I really like about this definition, it doesn't say there needs to be more than 2 people, because we can have our own inner conflict. So I'm curious, when you see that definition, what shifts in your change of view around conflict?
Should they type in the chat?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah. Conflict
so
is
Mo says it's an opportunity.
accepting differences. And I think this is a big thing, the importance to listen. It is more of having, I'm assuming, discussion than a fight. Yes. And flexibility. Yeah, there's an openness. And what I'm also curious about, when you think of your clients, what are the difficult conversations they're avoiding? Just give me some of the topics that they would have, again, in the chat. Just as people are typing, the one that I find often, accountability, misunderstanding, poor staff performance. That's probably one of the biggest
ones. I think
ones.
feedback discussions as well is really sometimes.
Openness, acceptance. Yeah. And so part of it is how do we support? Judging, realizing their responsibility in the issue, raising a touch issue close to the heart. Yeah. There's almost a invitation to vulnerability if we're truly going to have the conversation that's needed. So one of the things that I would note is that whenever there is change, there's conflict. And whenever there's conflict, there's change. So the big thing is, if we want healthy change, we need to invite healthy conflict. So the big thing is how to do that invitation, how to invite us into those conversations. And it was already said by one of the participants, Abir was talking about judging. So how do we move from that judgment to curiosity? And how do we help our clients move to curiosity, what they know or what they don't know? The other thing I would say, and Dare to Lead, this URL actually will take you to a file around what's needed to have a rumble, as she refers to it. And it's known as the Braving Inventory. So I'm just going to put this up. And it's, if you even just looked up, Googled Brené Brown Braving Inventory, it will take you to her Dare to Lead hub. And there's lots of free things to download. But this one I found really helpful. And in fact, Dare to Lead spends a lot of time looking at each one of these individually. And so Braving is an acronym for boundaries, reliability, accountability, vault, integrity, non-judgment, and generosity. So I'm just going to quickly explain these. So boundaries is setting boundaries, is making clear what's okay and what's not okay and why. So how are we going to hold the conversation? How do we invite each other, and how do we not cross each other's boundaries? The one thing that I also really appreciate that Brené Brown names a lot is she talks about clear is kind. To be unclear is to be unkind. So the boundaries also help us be much clearer. Just noticing other messages.
Can we, Brian, can you share with us like a real example, like something, another person's behavior or misunderstanding, something that we can resonate with either in the workplace or just?
Well, and the other piece I would say is, how often do we actually allow our boundaries to be crossed? So this is really about us. So if we're trying to have a difficult conversation, let's say it's performance review, how do we ensure that that we're not giving up what we really want just to appease them, to calm them down. And so I remember one client I worked with, she had a really difficult time with a performance review. And her biggest thing was how much this person was constantly either not doing their work, which is the reliability. You do what you say at work. This means staying aware of your competencies and limitations, so you don't overpromise and are able to deliver on commitments and balancing competing priorities. But when her I don't want to use the word underling, but a person she was supervising was not completing that, she was giving up her boundaries and doing extra work to do the work that this person was doing. The vault, well, an accountability, we've kind of already named that, is taking responsibility for your work. So your own mistakes, apologize and make amends. And that can go both ways. Like, how open are we to apologize if I had raised my voice, or I was a bit too harsh in an email, and that I could word it differently. The vault is really important. This is how you don't share information or experiences that are not yours to share. So I need to know that my confidence are kept, and you're not sharing with me any information about other people that should be confidential. So the piece in that is the vault is very closely connected to trust. And if we're not able to kind of hold that container, we're actually not providing the trust we need to have the difficult conversation. And so the next three: integrity, choosing courage over comfort, choosing what's right over what's fun, fast, or easy, and practicing your values, not just professing them. So the other thing that is really important is to really know what your values are. And in the Dare to Lead program, that's actually a couple weeks of going through a list of values and trying to pick out what are your top ones. And again, it comes back to boundaries. Am I holding these values in a way that I'm keeping boundaries around them? So one of my values is that we need to accept differences and honor differences between us, whether that's personality, culture, how we look, size, age, sexual orientation, gender identity. And so part of it for me is to always kind of be looking for, where am I not fully understanding a difference? Because if this is a value, then I need to be making sure that I'm honoring differences. And as we talk about personality.
So Brian, I really would like to understand, how can I help my client go through this difficult discussions? It's like, by making them reshare their values, or like, what questions can I ask
it's actually
so I can help my client see that? Yeah.
And it's actually going through that entire thing, the braving. What is missing in order to have the conversation? What needs to be worked on? The other piece is what is their reaction to the conflict? To ask your client, like, what is going on for you as you think about having this conversation? And some, it's like, I don't want to do it. Like,
is it like introspecting? Like what questions should he ask himself? Like, what about this conversation that annoyed me, or what about the other person said that annoyed me? Like,
it's even more than that. It's about the conversation itself. So even as you're trying to make sure I answer questions that you want, you're stepping up. How comfortable is that for you? And it could be really comfortable. What is the reason you're not having this conversation? Like that's kind of the big thing to zero in on. And part of it is by asking that, you can also ask, what's the cost of not having the difficult conversation? Which means I'm continuing to go on with somebody who's not performing well. If it's a relationship, I can continue on with this sense of I don't trust this person or they don't trust me, which takes away from our seeing each other as humans. And it kind of continues with us in that place of judgment. So the other story, the other thing I talk a lot about, and Brené Brown does this, especially in Daring Greatly and Arising Strong, is what is the story in your head? And how to ask what the story is. And it's also how to learn how to share the story in your head, because it's a way of kind of naming, I don't know if this is true. This is just the story that's going on in my head. So there's not judgment about it. And so with another client where they were having trouble, where the person was improving and then they would backslide to old patterns. And so she was able to name to this person during a review, I see all this great improvement. And then tends to be this 3-week period, and then it slides back. And the story in my head is that, there's other stuff going on in your life you're not sharing with us, and that we're not doing enough to support you, various things. So it becomes an opening for them to describe what's going on, or to see if they see that pattern. Another thing that I spend a lot of time on with clients is how to remove judgment. And so one of the exercises that I'll get them to do is to recognize that if we're inferring, like if we're guessing what emotions the person has, if we're guessing why they're doing it, that's as much of a judgment as well, because we don't know if it's true or not. And when we're doing kind of 360s, any kind of review process, we need to be able to stick with what we can smell, taste, see, feel. So
we're talking facts, like no opinions, no judgments,
no opinions, like, right?
And, has to be a pure fact. Like I felt that.
and so the other piece is how to just write it as they would. And so for an example, to go to facts, instead of saying, so this would be a judgment, is you suddenly stormed out of the meeting and you slammed the door behind you and left us kind of not knowing what was going on. How would you phrase that? And just try to put it in a chat. What behaviors you might have seen or heard, and stick to just those behaviors. So I'm just curious. There's a lot of smart people here.
So the analogy is that, like, I stormed out of the meeting, right? What are my feelings?
Or this is your judgment of another person.
Oh, so I saw someone else storm out of a meeting.
Storm out of a meeting. They raised, they slam the door behind.
Yeah, anger management, like
that's where your mind goes.
Yeah. I'm trying to get something else.
But it would be how to name that to the person that, we were surprised. But what we saw was we were in the meeting and suddenly you stood up quickly, you walked to the door, and as you were doing it, we could hear your feet hit the floor. And when the door shut, it made a loud noise behind you.
So it's the story.
Right, but without the slamming, without the inference that you're angry, because who knows, they may have just suddenly got an emergency text on their phone and just literally got lost in it and had to leave as fast as they could and weren't.
Wow, I love that. Yes, this is beautiful. This is how we show that we as human beings, we're always in control of what we choose to see and how to see it. So it's really nice. So how can we get our clients to see that as well?
So the other thing that I'll get them to do is actually write out their letter with all the judgments that they can. Get it out, but then take that and remove anything that's a judgment, anything that they don't know to be absolutely true. And
do they do that like situationally, or like do they remember a certain situation and they do that exercise in that situation?
They can do it for a certain situation. They can do it for an overall performance review with their long list of things. And again, it gets back to what facts do you have? So it's not that you sent angry emails. It's not that you sent this in reply. It's just that these were the responses I received from you. You named this, this, and this. And you could name then that the story in my head when I received this was that you were very angry. But what I've written in the performance review is only the facts. And so it also gets your clients to really keep track of communications, both spoken, written, and body communication, but focusing on what the body's actually doing, because we can misinterpret that really easily. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Karen. So, okay.
I'm so curious about what do your clients get to? Like, what the resolution? Do they tell you like, we're going to talk to them to check out the facts? Like, how do they check out facts?
Well, part of it is they're looking at their own judgment and reducing it to what they know to be true, something that cannot be challenged. So an example would be with my own son. We have a security system. We didn't install it because we were worried about being robbed. It was our son was coming home late and telling us he came home earlier than he did. So we put in a security system, and then it was like, did you get in at 11 last night? Yeah, I was in at 11, but the security system said you didn't get in until 12:30. Oh, yeah, that's right. Where before the security system, it was just this little battle because we didn't have any proof. Once we had that, there was proof. So it can be also like if you have a person regularly leaving the office early, it's just noting the times. And then you would also note the times they arrived, note if they were taking long lunches at the same time or not, like just to say, how are you managing your time? These are the things I noted. And again, it's how to take out the judgment. And like I've done this in workshops where we were live. I actually kind of like was in front of a table. There was all sorts of objects. I pick up one and you see me from behind, just kind of like going like this, and it makes it look like I'm putting something in my pocket. And then I walk off and I ask people to describe what they saw. And often it's like that you were looking around because you were nervous about somebody seeing you, and that you stole something from the table. I don't know what you stole, but obviously you stole something. And then I explained the story that actually happened was I noticed my fly was down and I'm looking to see who's there, and I'm like trying to cover up, lifting my fly up. So it's as simple as that, how we can misjudge what's truly happening. And so the other piece around the conversations is how do we feel strong enough in the message that we want to deliver? And the other piece is how do we understand the differences between personalities? So another piece I'd like to share, I'll show my slides. What I was describing before was just a behavior description. No inferences, no guessing. Only what you can hear, see, touch, smell, and taste. And so, like, what I would often do is have people write down a journal about the interaction that they need to talk about and go through it and cross out all the things that you can't observe, hear, or that you know to be absolutely true, inferences. And it's usually whatever emotion they have. And so the other thing that I use a tool is called the Enneagram, and it talks about there's 3 different approaches to a problem. And sometimes this is where we break apart in our conversations. So one of the things is there's 3 types that it's a positive outlook. They really want to know that whatever we're doing is going to work to a positive outcome. And often positive outlook people have a bigger picture view. And there's another group that's known as rational competency, and 3 types within the Enneagram personality type system. It's really about rational competency. We just want to logically think it through. And I would often say our positive outlook is that we're going to fix the problem. It might not be the best, we might have to fire some people, but we thought it through logically, which can be a big no-no to the positive outlook group that wants everybody to feel cared for. And then there's the third approach, the emotional realness, which is wanting to know how other people are affected. And what I often find is they first come by explaining how they're affected. And I'll admit I'm a rational competency person. So when I hear the emotions coming out and like they're really upset, how could we be doing this to them? I'm like, I don't want to touch the emotions. Let's just think it through logically. And again, it's where we can fall apart. So part of it is listening for the different approaches and who do you have on your team? Because the truth is we need all 3 approaches to truly solve a problem. And often what happens is we only have 1 or 2. And so how do we bring the third in? So I'll also name that there's 3 different ways of positive outlook. There's one type that keeps it positive by just like, I'm not listening to anything negative. They get really defensive when there's criticism. They just don't know how to take it. And so it's recognizing this personality type is fearing being trapped in emotional pain. So reviews, any kind of criticism can just trigger this I'm not listening or defensive reactions. There's another type that it's like, I'm damn well going to help you, sorry for my language, at any cost. I'll do it for you. And another is a positive outlook where, you can have chaos around you, but the truth is they have this thought of how these 2 children love each other. And that's what they're thinking of as they're watching them fight. They love each other. They'll get through this and don't intercede. This is my 2 kids many years ago. But anyways, for the emotional realness, there's 3 different approaches to it. So one approach is letting you know that I can't believe you're doing this to me. It's kind of a sense of the victim. And we've all had victims on our teams. There's other emotional realness where it's like, you're not going to do this to me. And how dare you even consider it? And then there's the one that's in between that literally can change halfway through the sentence. This is my oldest son. So he can be like, I don't understand how you could possibly be doing do this to me, don't do it again. So it's like mid-sentence changing through. So one thing I've noticed when I've worked with corporations is emotional realness often gets put down. And the truth is, the mistake I've made is when I've heard somebody say, well, I'm feeling this, da, da, da. I'm like, my fear is that they want me to feel the same thing. And I often don't. But what it really is an invitation to name how I feel. And once learning that, once I was able to name how I was affected, then it was like, oh, okay, so you're not affected the same way as me. That's okay. But in order to solve a problem, they need to know how everybody's affected. And the third type, the rational competency, there's one type that really likes to know what their rules are. And so any problem, I'm going to consult my rules, not necessarily everybody else's, but my rules. And we'll build the structure on that. While there's another type who could care less about the rules. They just want to see the whole system. And new rules may be developed as we kind of see the system. And then there's the third type who really likes rules as long as they're working for them. And if they're not, then okay, throw them out and go to the system. But the big piece is in this, especially around conflict, is what approaches are you hearing others do? And if you can guess what their approach is, then you can meet them where they are at before you introduce your approach. There was one team I worked with. There was 40 people on the team. The entire leadership was positive outlook. And they were a government thing, so they were all dealing with government cuts and how to have the conversation. But the piece is the positive outlook leadership. Until they knew for sure, they didn't want to express any fear or anything that's coming. So out of this team of 40 people, they only had 2 emotional realness. And the one emotional realness volunteered to talk about what the problem was. And they said it beautifully. Like they said, you know, I know you are looking after us, you're looking out for us, but not knowing what the possibilities that are going to happen, it makes it feel hard to trust you. And I had the director respond to that. And the director, I was really impressed because they said, you know, it is really hard. We're holding this weight. We don't know how many people will be affected. We're trying to figure out how we can still do our work with less team members. And, you know, but, you know, we are trying our hardest and we really have everybody in mind. And da, da, da. So I then stopped her and just asked the person who was saying, when did you stop listening? And it was as soon as she said, but, because she went back into her positive outlook. So the hardest part is knowing which style we are and kind of holding that so that we can hear the other person, meet them where they're at, and then do that. So I actually have a whole process that I've done with teams and boards where they've named a problem, and it's usually one that they thought they've solved, but it keeps reoccurring. That's usually an indicator that they haven't dealt with all 3 approaches. And so what I've often done, and I'll just share the screen just to kind of outline it, is I get them to note what their dominant approach is, whether they're a positive outlook, whether they're a rational competency or an emotional realist. And I'm curious, what do we have in this room? So if you could, yes, which approach is yours to a problem? And I would say positive outlook are people that really see the big picture, but sometimes can get stuck because there's so many pieces and they want to care for everybody. The rational competency, and that's where I am, the mistake I'll make is I identify a part of the problem that I can fix, and I go into fix-it mode, and I tend to focus right in on one piece, which gets me into trouble because I'm not considering the whole thing. And the emotional realness, they have the danger of being labeled, as a victim, or that they're complaining all the time, when what they're really doing is just trying to name how they're affected. So upon, and I'm not seeing anybody type in what they think, what they think their approach is. But I get the team to think about the issue that keeps arising and write down their thoughts from their dominant approach. But then I also ask them to write down what they think it is from the other approaches so that they're ready. And then whoever speaks first, we identify what approach they have and try and meet them there. And the biggest thing, this is often a thing that you can really facilitate well, because you're listening for that but, where they suddenly shift into their own voice. And so it's about going through the circle with each one. It doesn't matter which one you start with. But I have had so many people that this is the process that they now use whenever there's a problem. And so it's also about noting changes in your thoughts that you had during the discussion for what you originally wrote down, and what solution is arising with these three different approaches. And again, I've used this with supervisors and their staff. I've used this with couples, and it's kind of figuring out, is any missing? Is any approach missing? Which is often the case for a couple. So my own husband and I, we have to make sure we bring in the emotional realness. So I'm just curious, what other questions do people have? And we can just kind of go. And I'm curious, like, what is one of the toughest conversations that you maybe want help with?
Amazing. So we're ready to open the floor. If anyone would like to share with us a certain event, situation, would you like that, Brian?
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, to keep confidence, not to name people or an organization.
Yeah, if you're just curious on how to, like, what should you have done, or you want to get coached on how to deal or do this, there's a difficult conversation that you would like to. Okay, I see everybody thinking. So if you would like to share.
Oh, I see Mo raised his hand.
Yeah, Mo raised his hand. Okay, Mo, the floor is yours. Unmute, please.
All right. Thank you, Brian. And hello again from Toronto, your hometown. Actually, one of the most conflict discussion I've been there, when in a team, when someone from the team got promoted to be the team manager or the team lead. And the conflict becomes like, how can I handle this discussion? Thank you.
So describe that just a bit more for me. What are the tensions that are created when you promote one person to be the team leader?
Well, one of the tensions that some other team members, they see this person as still a peer to them, and they don't accept the guiding or the authority she or he has from the promotion. So they push back on any kind of guiding or help. The other one is the team members, they overarch this person and they go direct to higher level, not acknowledge this person's position and authority. And of course, the most difficult or conflict one, when something doesn't go right, and trying to address, again, to my word, accountability or responsibility. And that's when the push start coming back, like, I've been doing this as long as you do, so don't tell me I did something wrong or we need to fix something.
Right. And so who do you think are the people that would be inviting the conversation? So first off would be like, who would be the one that needs to initiate the conversations?
The one on the higher position, the manager or the lead.
And so when you've talked with them, what are the challenges that they've had? What are the things that stop them from kind of addressing it?
The resistance and the pushback from the team members, again, because the conflict of, I was like the team member thinking I was with them in the team in the same level, why this person would have more authority over me. And I think the human aspect of the conversation.
Yeah. So again, it's, what are you thinking are the elements, like, as you said, accountability. And so would it be part, like, my question would be for that team leader is what is it that they're needing to express that they've taken on as added responsibilities? Like, to name how they're affected, or their positive outlook, what they really want for the team. And then for the team to kind of, how do we work together better? Like that step by step.
Okay.
Well, and it's just, again, how I would also ask that team leader kind of like, what approaches are they seeing in their team members? How do they honor them? Like, if they're complaining, it's often how they're affected. Or if it's like positive outlook, like, we used to be a great team, we're not anymore. I want it to be a great team. So it's how to appeal to those three approaches. And it's really important to know what's different about the team leader's approach than the team members, so that they can start using the same language.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, and I would also suggest, that's the time to practice conversations where you maybe take on the role of one of their team, and you get the script from your client as to what are the phrases they often make. And then you can also act, okay, when after you say something in a mean-spirited way or whatever, is to ask them, okay, so what goes on for you when that happens? And that's also where I'd refer back to that briefing. Where's the accountability? Where's the vault? Where's the boundaries? Where's your values in this? What do you want to uphold? The other piece that's a really important part of the Dare to Lead program is knowing who's in the arena. When you walk into this, and it's like when they would have warriors kind of fight each other amongst the arena, that there's going to be people that are supporters. There are going to be people that are going to put it down. And how do you know which parts of the arena and where is your support? So it also might be having the conversation, that team leader, with their next supervisor. So it's, again, just where how are they using all their supports? And often I just ask, what are the supports? Who are the groups that would help you? Is it HR? And often it should be HR, but a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to deal with them. So you have to work through that as well.
Okay.
Any other thoughts from you? Because you know the situation. So what else would you say?
In this situation, I was trying to work actually with both sides. So I was trying to work also with the team member to understand, and this is how I got some feedback from them saying, we used to be peers, like we don't understand why this person got promoted. And I asked the question, did you apply for this job? Did you want their position? And some said yes, some said no. But again, I think, again, back to your example of like the child behavior or feelings, I think it's the same like when there is children and there is competition or anything like this, and no one likes to lose. So I was trying to evoke the growth in different area. Like maybe this person went as like a manager somewhere, but your growth and your focus on, for example, customer focused or sales focused. So I was trying to understand from both sides, like where is the conflict, and trying to get each one actually to switch positions. So they try to see each other's
perspective.
The other person.
Yeah, that's excellent, Mo. That's excellent. And the other piece in that is how to then work with a client that they did apply and didn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe this is where you can count on your team leader to get some mentoring as to what they got it. Did you ever think of asking your mentor, your team leader, to do that with you? So thank you for that.
Right. Thank you so much. Nice talking to you.
Thanks. And Hanfi.
Yeah, we have Muhammad Hanafi, one more hand up. Okay, so we're going to be taking Muhammad and then ending our webinar. Yeah. I just want to remind everyone that there is a form in the chat where you can receive, if you're a coach, you can receive your source development. So please make sure to fill it. Muhammad, please.
Thank you, Karima. And thank you, Brian. Actually, I joined in after half of the time has already passed. So I couldn't catch it all. However, I guess there is rich input that I could get from you. I just raised my hand to comment on Moe's case, and being in the corporate arena, on daily basis, I face lots of cases, similar cases. I just wanted to comment on Moe's, while speaking, he said that they would ask why this has been appointed as, and this is a start of the start of the solution. There should be a why we have selected this person or appointed this person to be your leader. Another statement he stated was, did you apply for this position before? Have you requested for that? I guess there is the transparency factor being missed here. So there is an issue of transparency from the beginning on appointing this person to be the leader. If there is an announcement for a vacancy, then I would pop in and say, well, I would like to. Just a comment, and this is out of the scope of the session, I understand, but that's what I wanted to say, and I wanted to thank you both, Karimen and Brian. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. Brian, your last notes.
Well, just again to go off of Mohammed is that Brené Brown keeps stating, to be clear is to be kind. To be unclear is to be unkind, which is the importance of transparency, to be honest. And I can't say enough of how much the Dare to Lead program has helped me. So I do recommend it. There's facilitators around the world. So go to our website and look for opportunities. It's a great program to look at yourself as well, and what will allow you to be vulnerable, to have these conversations. So thank you all for attending. I'm wishing you a great International Coaching Week.
Thank you so much.
Brian. As we come to the end of this webinar on mastering the art of difficult conversation, I would like to take a moment to express my appreciation. Firstly, I want to thank our speaker, Brian, for sharing his expertise and insights on this important topic. Your valuable tips will surely help us navigate difficult conversation with confidence and ease. I also want to thank all of you, the attendees, for your participation and engagement through the session. Your thoughtful questions and comments have added to the richness of the discussion and made this webinar a success. I just want to add one note. Remember that mastering the difficult conversation is an ongoing process, and it takes practice and patience. But with the insights gained from this webinar, I'm confident that each of us can become better at handling challenging conversation in both our personal and professional lives. This session is going to be recorded and uploaded on our YouTube channel, ICF Egypt chapter. Once again, thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to connecting with you again in future webinars. Make sure to check our website for upcoming events this week. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a lovely night. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a beautiful night. Thank you.